All right. So bigger piece to today, why we kind of are having this webinar is we are launching a full campaign starting this afternoon. Save CT Restaurant. You see the hashtag that's up top. It's a picture of the firebox. If you guys obviously should all know that location in Hartford, it's a landmark. Our chairman of our board, Dan Miser, actually opened the firebox. Day one was the GM, and wholeheartedly, it means a lot to him. But that's an example of the 600 restaurants we've either lost permanently already or have closed without a date for reopening. That's the reality we're faced with right now, and we need to get messaging out on all different facets and all different sides, not just to the governor and the administration, but to the media and to the public. The Save CT Restaurants, we didn't make it up ourselves. Obviously, learning from some other states. Michigan's done some things. Delaware has done some incredible things over the last few weeks. But my ask of each of you today, as we have, 119 of you on this call, is this campaign is only as successful as each of you. While I said we have one voice, said this at the beginning of the webinar, we're doing everything we can to push out our voice and push out our messaging. But we need each of you and your social channels and the outlets that you have to tell your story, to tell the realistic situation that you're in, to highlight your employees, to highlight the safety things you're doing, to continue to push that we need support to make sure you can make it through and see the other side of this pandemic. My goal in all of this as an association is I know that this pandemic will end at some point, hoping it will happen sooner rather than later. Trying to stay positive with the vaccines that will start to be distributed. We're being told by December 12th, 13th, or 14th throughout the country, how it will be distributed in Connecticut, what that means for our phases. When can we maybe start to see the light at the end of the tunnel to start to reopen our businesses fully? All of those questions we're asking, all of those we know. But in reality, I also know that that's going to take months. That's not going to happen tomorrow. That's not going to happen in 2 weeks. December, January, and February are crucial times for each of you to survive and get through this pandemic, get to the spring, see the other side of this, and start to recover and get a resurgence and a revival, because it will happen. I know that when people are dying to get back out to eat at a restaurant, to go 4 deep in a bar, to have a wedding, to do all the things that goes beyond this pandemic or what they used to do. But my goal is to make sure that out of the 8,500 restaurants, the 600 we've lost, we keep as many of those restaurants open and seeing and making it to that other side of this. And that's what this campaign is really about. So I ask of you guys, I guess I'll lead with what we're doing. And my first ask, so our first thing that we are doing, this is our letter to the governor and to legislative leaders that will go out this afternoon, probably around noontime, to the governor, to media. We'll have a press release. The whole hashtag is Save CT Restaurants. Everything's tied behind that. These are our 3 big asks right now of the governor. We can talk about other little things, I know delivery fees and liquor extensions and credit extensions and Eversource and all. Like, I'm working on all those things behind the doors. These aren't the bigger issues. These 3 things I feel like help make us to February. First and foremost is don't roll us back. We've proven that indoor dining is safe. It's effective. We can do this the right way. It's a regulated environment. Restaurants do not need to go back to just take out and to go. As long as they're following, and they are the vast majority of our good actors, and we need to keep that top of mind. I think the governor did a really good job in his press conference yesterday, pushing back on the media questions in regards to this. The second one is the big one. The second one is state grant program funding, specifically tied to our industry. The $50 million that the state put out, the $5,000 grants do not help our industry. I know that it doesn't. I also know it's not a targeted grant program that should be specific to hospitality, specific to restaurants, specific to private event venues, specific to caterers and wedding venues that a lot of other states around us in big cities, metropolitan areas have launched. As an example, Washington, D.C. is giving $35 million program specifically to restaurants. Ohio, $39 million. Maryland, $50 million. New Jersey, $35 million. Rhode Island launched an extra $100 million, $50 million targeted to hospitality and the closures. That's where this ask and this letter really needs to drive home. And the reason being, as you guys, if you don't know, the CARES Act money, we're not talking about federal money that hasn't been issued. Our state received $1.38 billion I think it was in either early May or late April to use for COVID related expenses. The majority of the programs I just talked about in these other states have used CARES Act funding or even rainy day funds. In Maryland, they're using rainy day funds as well to target and help small businesses, specifically the hospitality sector. I found out last night that there's still $196 million in the CARES Act pool of unspent money in our state. That is something that I'm going to push hard through media and everything else to say that we need a carve out of hospitality. When I see $9 million going to nonprofit art venues yesterday, it's disheartening. As much as I know that places need that, our industry needs it as much as anyone. And I would argue that you give me another industry that's been hit harder. And that's where the state money needs to be talked about and why we need the state grant support. We're talking about grants, not loans, a bridge grant program. As I told Commissioner Lehman, I don't expect the state to save our industry because they can't do that. They don't have the amount of funding to do that, to launch a PPP program, to launch a Restaurants Act at $120 billion. They don't have that money. But what they could do is they could offer programs similar to these other states, $20,000, $30,000 that can get you the next 2 or 3 months to get you to that next round of federal stimulus, that you can pay some bills, that you can pay some of your staff, that you can do some things to make it to that light at the end of the tunnel. And that's what we're pushing for. That's what that second ask is really about here. And that's the biggest part of this ask of this letter, but the biggest part of why we need a loud voice from our industry, of each of you, to tell that. And then the last one is just as important, though, don't get me wrong. Bolster consumer confidence throughout this. What words have meaning, what the governor says, what the media says, what the media promotes on a state level and national level, targeting our industry has had a negative effect. Trust me, I know. I've seen the numbers of what 2.1 meant, what the governor's comments about, I think eating inside is a risk. I don't think I would do it. Those comments that he makes at press conferences have a damaging to us. And I'm going to continue to push that we need to show everything that you guys are doing to the customers, and we need the customers to be telling the positive stories and how safe your restaurants are, and liking your pages and writing back and eating out. I can tell you there's members of this administration that eat out inside restaurants over the weekend, had just sent to me notes all the time. Hey, it's great to see that restaurant in Old Greenwich or Stamford did a phenomenal job. But they need to do that publicly. And that's really where the other ask of this to these leaders are, that they need to step up, because there is no factual information that I have seen that ties super spreaders to restaurants by any stretch of the imagination. And I will continue to push for that as we move forward. Even in the national studies, I push back on some of the CDC reports. I can go into more detail on those. The DPH state study was a joke. It was focused on employees, not on front of house, had nothing to do with patrons, had nothing to do with what the safety of your restaurant and what we're doing to follow these rules and make sure when you do have a positive case, because don't get me wrong, it happens. You guys are doing a phenomenal job of mitigating that risk, making sure your staff are safe and making sure your customers are safe, and doing everything you can and making tough decisions. Some of you have had to close down your restaurants for a number of days or weeks because of outbreaks, but you're taking those steps. You're working with public health, and you're working through this, which is, I think, needs to be pushed as much as possible. So this is the letter that will go out. I'm going to ask, I will make sure as you guys move forward that we're going to ask each of you guys as a call to action to send this to your local leaders, your new state rep, your new state senator. It'll go to the governor. It should go, it needs to go to all these state folks to make sure that they are seeing this letter, they're hearing it from you. You'll have an opportunity to tell your story. If you guys remember on the phone to action side that's on the side, you can write in, hey, I'm Scott, I'm the executive director of the CRA. This is this letter and what we need to do to save our industry. You can write whatever you want, or we'll already have a draft that you can just hit send and spend 2 minutes to do that, to get emails flooded into the inboxes of our legislative leaders that these three asks are there. That's the first step. So that's the first step of Save CT Restaurants. Second step, just as important, is your job here moving forward. So we've partnered with three incredible groups, as you guys probably all know them. Stephanie at Steph at CT Bites, Jeanette and Kristen at Eat in Connecticut, and Chaz at Go Nation. We've all worked with them as a CRA in different capacities obviously in better times normally. But I want to really take the moment here to thank each of them because, as you guys can imagine, the finances aren't there. We don't have an opportunity to put this gigantic media campaign together as an association. And these three companies are built on the success of restaurants. But they've stepped up to the plate already and are going to continue to help us through this campaign of making sure that we have messaging, storylines. I know with Chaz and I were going back and forth late last night. We're trying to build a commercial on Save CT restaurants and making it Connecticut specific. We're working on vignettes that we're going to ask of some of you guys to tell your story more directly to this, but also we want the organic, we want the genuine stories that you can use and promote on your own platforms to really make this ask larger and make the noise as loud as possible that our industry is in dire straits, that we need as much help and support as we possibly can, not only from administrative leaders, not only from elected officials, not only from media, but also from consumers. We need them to help support your restaurants any way that they can, either eating inside, eating outside in an igloo that's heated, to go take out, whatever that it can be. We can't lose, the support that we're going to need over the next 3 months. So I thank, first of all, these four people, but these three companies for all that they normally do. If you don't know them, they're phenomenal. And I appreciate their efforts already so far of helping us. And then I'm going to turn it over to Yvette and let her kind of share her screen because she has some more details on this program. So Yvette, it is your virtual floor now.
Thank you, Scott. And thank you everybody for being on this webinar today. I'm going to just go a little bit more into what the Save CT Restaurants campaign is and how you can get involved. And I want to mirror what Scott just said. The teams at CT Bites and Eat In and Go Nation are the best of the best. They work very hard, in support of the industry. And what we love is they're not only connected to all of you as far as the restaurant owner or operator side, but they're also connected to that, the dining public. They've been reaching out to us for, weeks and months now saying, how can we help? We're here, to support any way we can. And so we came together in the last couple of weeks to put this campaign together. We appreciate so much everything that they've done. I know, those of you on this webinar today probably have relationships with each of them. So please continue to reach out throughout this campaign. We're all going to support this campaign and help you get your story out there. So I just want to, I don't have the fancy PowerPoint that Scott had up there just a moment ago, but I'm just going to go through this document and we will send you this document. I just want to make sure, Scott, are everybody able to see this? Okay, good. We're going to email this document out to you, so you'll have all this information. The more folks that we can get involved in this campaign, the better. So please share this out to anyone else that you may know. So as Scott mentioned, Save CT Restaurants is a statewide marketing campaign to help restaurants communicate the impact the pandemic has had on your business. I love the comment that Kristen made a few minutes ago in the chat that said, think of this as a truth campaign, sharing how this pandemic has impacted your business and what you're doing to keep your guests safe. So with this, we really want to make sure we're sharing, as I have here on this document, you can see the real and gritty reality of your situation. I think sometimes we hear, though the dining public has been very supportive in, outside dining, getting takeout, buying gift cards, we sometimes hear that there's this sort of mentality that that's enough and that the dining public thinks, well, you guys are fine because, you've got takeout and to go and you've got outside dining. And as we know, it's not enough. And so we want to kind of get a little bit more gritty in this and as Kristen said, that truth campaign and share the reality of what your situation is. And the way that we're doing this with this campaign is by sharing an impact video or an impact photo. I'm going to go into what those will look like in just a moment. But with the impact video, this would be just you recording a short video expressing how the pandemic has impacted your business. We do have in this document, and I'll show you in a moment, some suggested or example speaking points if you just kind of need some ideas of what to talk about. But record that video and share it on social media. Use the hashtag #SaveCTRestaurants, and there's other hashtags that we're going to share with you in just a moment too. We ask that you, or suggest that you keep the video to 30 seconds or less, simply because of sharing on social media. That's going to make it most impactful, but we also know your story may take a little bit longer. So we want you to share whatever story, touches you the most, and get that story out there. The other part of this, you can do in addition to a video, or if you prefer to do a photo, the impact photo, we're asking you to take a photo of yourself or your team or your restaurant holding up a sign that makes a statement. And again, whatever statement resonates with you, do the hashtag #SaveCTRestaurants, but it may be, as you can see some of the examples here, I laid off 40% of my workforce. I might have to close my doors soon. Please support us and our restaurant families. Again, like really sharing a story that will resonate with folks, and share the reality of what your situation is. I'm going to scroll down just a moment because I want to show you, we kind of borrowed this idea, I think Scott mentioned from, I don't have the pictures here. I'll show you in just a moment, from another state that, Delaware did this campaign, and what they did is they focused on restaurant jobs. So they had their staff holding up signs saying, save our jobs. That's just one example. You can see down here at the end of this document some of the example speaking points. You can talk about the impact that the pandemic has had on your business. And some of these really go into some details. What's the percentage your business is down? How many employees did you have to let go in the last lockdown? What's going to happen if we get locked down again? What does your bottom line look like with respect to your expenses each month? We hear a lot of people talking about rent and insurance and payroll, and I don't think, anyone outside of the industry doesn't really understand what those numbers look like and how that's impacting you right now. The community impact, who relies on you in the community? What other businesses, your vendors, purveyors, farmers that are impacted when your business takes a downturn? What are the steps you're taking to keep your staff and your guests safe? The general impact in mental health. Mental health is something we know is something that hits our industry disproportionately, and right now that's even more so. So you may want to speak about, how has managing a business, your business through the pandemic impacted your mental health and emotional health of you or of your staff? What's keeping you up at night? What's your greatest fear? And then the last points there, you can see the state support. How do you feel about the support you've gotten so far from the state? I know that's a tough tough question to answer, but I think the more we can share the truth and reality of your situation, the more that we'll be able to get this message out. Now, if we go back up here, you're going to see the second step after you do your video, your photo. You're going to see the step 2, which is sharing your photo or video on Facebook and Instagram. Use the hashtag #SaveCTRestaurants in any of your posts. And then we're going to ask you to tag. You're going to tag the #SaveCTRestaurants, the Restaurant Association, Eat in Connecticut, CT Bites, CT Food Lovers. Tag also the governor. Tag the DECD, any of your local elected officials, any media contacts you may have, and then you can see the other hashtags that we have there at the bottom. The CRA and CT Bites and Eat In will all work to help to get visibility around this campaign, and we'll help to share your videos and your photos. But please, you can start this today. We think over the next couple of weeks, we're going to see a lot of momentum through this. So we, invite everybody on this webinar today to go ahead and start, sharing your photos or videos.
Can I jump in real quick?
Yeah, go ahead, Scott.
Because I see some questions, and yes, Twitter, Nikki, apologize, we didn't put on there. Every social, Snapchat, whatever you guys use as a platform that your customers engage with. And if some of you guys have younger demographics, as I look to John Nealon, if he's on this morning with Taco Daddy and his team, we're going to take direction. Your guests, who goes on your Instagram, who shares, likes, everything else. We're just trying to create a long lasting campaign. We could go out and just say, hey, give us money. I know there's been frustration texts on the side that maybe people don't want to put up here. Like, why don't we just shut down and get in state relief? This is ridiculous. People aren't coming out. I hear that frustration every single day. I understand that, but understand this, just because they shut you down does not mean they're going to give us a damn thing in state money. And that's the frustration that I have. And the other thing is, as you guys know, any additional rollbacks is going to make it hard as hell to get us back to phase 3. It's going to take us longer because it's going to be, we're going to wait 2 more weeks or 28 more days till we get back to phase 2. And then we're going to wait another 28 more days. Like that whole world that we lived in throughout the summer and fall matters. The same way I told the private event industry about the 25 or less, that's frustrating as well. Like they're worried about Q2 weddings and things that are being canceled right now. But I said, if we roll back to a phase 1, think how much harder it's going to get to get to the other side of that and how long that took us through that process. So just understand that, like, I get it. I understand the frustration, and you guys have to make difficult decisions. And it's heartbreaking for me to, to hear from a restaurant yesterday that I've known and a board member that means so much to me and what they're going through and a tough decision they're going to have to make. All of these matters. I get it, but understand we're trying to do everything we can to help you survive. And I'm hopeful that we can build back consumer confidence and we can get, the messaging, and I'm hopeful. I want to be optimistic through this process of, what Thanksgiving looked like. I think a lot of people were around older demographic was like, I'm just not going to go out this week because I'm going to see my grandmother on Friday, and like we heard that. And obviously the numbers are going to be a telltale sign of what this weekend looks like. But everything that we try to do in this campaign, matters. And the other piece to why we chose Save CT Restaurants is this campaign can carry weight no matter what we talk about. It's, the Delaware one that I know Yvette just showed some photos. It's about Save Our Jobs, which is an impactful. We could talk about that in Save CT Restaurants. We can talk about the 85,000 folks that went on unemployment in the first 2 weeks of this pandemic. We can talk about, that if we had to go back to a phase 1, how many more people will go back on unemployment without a safety net on the state side? There is no safety net on a federal side. All of that is playing into this conversation. But my goal for this is I want to have a campaign that is organic, that's led by you guys. Obviously, we're going to do some of the charge on a political side and legislatively where the letter comes in, and why I try to work with the media to talk about these 3 kind of big topic message points. But where you take and go with it is so important, where people to see, like, we have to tell the story. We have to see the faces of your employees, the faces of you working your butt off and the 15-hour days behind the line, telling that story of like, hey, I have to work, I haven't been at the line cooking, in 8 years, and now I have to do it to survive as a restaurant. Those stories matter, but people need to see that. I think that's what has gotten lost, the genuine appeal of that. These aren't big chain restaurants. These aren't, the 600 restaurants that have already closed. So you guys know, those are from our top 5 food distributors. Some of them are on the call right now. Though they don't deal with national accounts. Those are out of like we have probably 8,500 restaurants, but we probably have about 4,000 that are really the full service dining. Those are the numbers that are hitting. So when you really look at the stark reality, it's really bleak. And this story needs to be told, and people need to understand you guys are phenomenal at and I think Juliana put up a great point, that you're feeding frontline workers, you're feeding staff that you've laid off. All of that can tie into Save CT Restaurants. Every single part of this story, and I hear them every day, are phenomenal. You guys are fighters. You guys are like, make me always want to get up and fight every day because of what you're doing. We just need to tell that in a larger way to the public. And that's where this campaign really starts and where we're trying to go with it. So we will launch the letter in the press release, and you'll see the email and probably a call to action to push the letter out today. But start building ideas you guys have with your team. You guys have some phenomenal marketing teams already. To say, hey, Scott, we're going to do this or that. Like, you don't have to ask for our approval. You don't have to, obviously if you get a media inquiry, let me know. I'm happy to kind of give you some talking points if you need help with that. But the more organic, the better. The more that this comes genuine from your story, that people need to know. These are your dreams. You guys building these restaurants are everything. And people need to understand that. And we need to stop looking at it as, oh, it's just, we'll close you and we'll reopen you later on. Like, they need to understand what that would mean to each of you individually and to our entire industry. So that's, I wanted to make sure I drove that home with some of these questions.
I also wanted to mention, I know we have caterers on this call. I know we have vendors on this call. This campaign is open to everyone, even though, we've positioned at, as restaurants. We all have a story, and we all are impacted by this. So, everyone can share their story. And to Scott's point, I think, and I know Juliana had a good suggestion there in the chat. Would it help if we did a video with other restaurants in our towns to show how many of us there are and that we are a united front? I think that's a great idea. And I think for us, we did want to provide some, example speaking points, but we want you to share your story, and we want to see that creativity. Whatever you think is going to make an impact, please, as Scott mentioned, you don't have to clear it with us. Please just share your story and be as creative. We've seen some of you share some really incredible stories throughout this, and it's made a difference. And Kristen's put, in the comments, In-Group Creative in Eaton is here to help. Message them, CT Bites, Go Nation. They're phenomenal and the best at what they do.